We're so excited to have our speaker today, Payam Zamani, and his topic will be elevating work to worship. Mr. Zamani is an Iranian-American tech entrepreneur, angel investor, and philanthropist. He's the founder, chairman, and CEO of One Planet Group, a hybrid tech firm that owns and operates a suite of online technology and media businesses. He's also an early-stage investor in cutting-edge technologies and businesses, and also serves as a startup business incubator. Payam co-founded Bahá'íTeachings.org in 2012, which discusses key issues affecting society today and shares the messages of the Baha'i faith. Baha'i Teachings is a platform that allows Baha'is from all walks of life to write essays on a variety of topics with the idea of introducing the faith to those who are interested. And with that, I would like to introduce Mr. Zamani.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And it's, I feel like it's one of the benefits of COVID-19 that, getting to know friends from all over the country. Before we were kind of like confined to our own areas and neighborhoods, but now all over the world, literally. So it's really good to see you all. And thank you so much to dear Armin, to Paymane, and to Bita for the invitation. It's really, really good to be here with you. So I'm going to share my screen. Please let me know if for any reason you don't see it. Okay, I'm going to assume that you all see my screen. Okay, excellent. So, of course, you all know this better than I do, that as Baha'is, we believe that work can be same as worship. But if you're like me, often I've thought about, but how's that possible? Because every now and then, we think about our own work, we kind of rate our own work, that really what I did was worship today, or we, call the local cable company and we're treated not very nicely. And it makes us wonder that was worship. So, to me, but there's a sense of freedom that comes with this profound Baha'i teaching. But then, of course, there are also parameters around it. But this profound teaching can apply to anyone, regardless of whether we are Baha'i or not, because it's about elevating one's work. And you don't have to be a Baha'i to be interested in elevating your work. And this unique concept of work as worship allows everyone to have complete coherence in their lives and integrate their personal, professional, religious, and service life into one and the same thing. I've always found this concept fascinating, as I just said, because it made me wonder, are there parameters that, to like what kind of a job can be considered worship? If I'm a stock trader and I buy and sell stock, I buy low and sell high, is that worship? What if I'm wealthy and I've got a business, I offer no profit sharing, and I continue to go after building a big business, and I compete aggressively in my market? Is that worship? What if I own a factory and I employ a couple thousand people? I provide good livelihood to all these individuals, but my product has really low quality and consumers often complain about the quality of my work. Is that worship? What if I don't like my job and I go to work every day, even though I really don't like it, but it pays the bills? Is that worship? Before I jump into Baha'i writings on these subjects, I'd like to share with you a little bit about my own story, which I think, when combined with the teachings of the Baha'i faith, has impacted my understanding of the subject. And of course, you all know that there is no clergy in the Baha'i faith, and we're all just simply sharing our own, the best understanding that we each have based on what we've read. So I came to the US in 1988 as a refugee. I landed in San Francisco with my brother, who's 6 years older than me. Our parents were not with us. I was 16 years old. And together, my brother and I, we had $75 in our pocket. We had spent the year prior to that in Pakistan together. I put myself through high school, working full time. And then I went to the University of California at Davis, where I received my degree in environmental toxicology. even though my brother is older than me, because we came to the US at the same time. And as you know, Baha'is in Iran don't have the right to attend universities. We ended up starting university at the same time. So we both graduated at the same time in 1994. Right out of college, and the credit goes to my brother, we ended up starting a company that was one of the first ever businesses that was built on the internet. And back then, our challenge wasn't just to sell our offering, but also sell people on the internet that there is this new thing called the internet and what it is, help them visualize it because they'd never seen it before, and then grow a business on that new platform. We worked very hard and we risked everything. And we raised money from investors, we hired people, and we ultimately took a company public on NASDAQ in 1999, which was absolutely a dream come true. It was an amazing experience, but as was the case and is the case with many founders in Silicon Valley, it left me not very satisfied. The real question I had was, now what? You see, the experience was phenomenal, but was designed to reach an outcome. While I think the Baha'i teachings are trying to get us focused on making the journey one that is worth traveling. We can only do that, the Baha'i teachings say, through service to others as an integral part of our work. That's a condition for how work gets elevated to worship. And we'll touch on that a bit more in this presentation. Now, of course, years have passed, and today I run a different company called One Planet, a company that at least we're making a humble attempt to combine work with service to humanity. At One Planet, we have tried to do our best to weave the Baha'i teachings into the fabric of our organization and those that we work with. It's a work in progress. We make a lot of mistakes every day. And I'll share with you some examples of our efforts as we go through the next 3 sections that will make up my presentation. The first one is the need to work and not be idle, regardless of how much one may already have. That's a Baha'i law. The second one, elevating work to worship. And the third one, further elevating work to purposeful impact, using our profession as an agent for making the world a better place. So let's go to the first one, the Baha'i counsel to work and not be idle. Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the Baha'i Faith, asked us to guard our lives against indolence, laziness, and sloth, saying that everyone should engage in useful work, regardless of their economic status and, frankly, some handicaps that the individuals may have. The Baha'i teachings especially honor and exalt those who practice a craft or an art and develop it to a high level of expertise and excellence. Baha'u'llah asked everyone to treat craftsmen with deference and said that God loves the highest attainment of skill in every art and craft. Baha'u'llah wrote, "It is enjoined upon every one of you to engage in some form of occupation, such as crafts, trades, and the like. We have graciously exalted your engagement in such work to the rank of worship unto God, the True One." Many people, when they think about the word worship, view it as an old-fashioned or even an obsolete term. I mean, in today's society, the idea of worship, worshiping an unknown essence, it is not something that I would think that the average person that you meet on the street is thinking about. For some, it brings up a vision of a passive figure sitting idly, silently hoping that things will improve, rather than actively engaging with the world to bring about change. But for Baha'is, the concept of worship has taken on a completely new meaning, a new power, and a new spirit. Abdul Baha tells us, Abdul Baha, who's the son of the prophet of the Baha'i Faith, tells us that spirit is a oneness of the world of humanity, the establishing of universal peace, right, and justice, the fact that religion must be conducive to harmony among mankind, reconcile reason and science, equality of men and women, the freedom and independence of all men, the founding of heavenly morale and love for all mankind, even for animals, the universalizing of common knowledge and the fact that the profession and trade and agriculture are the worship of God, that the farmer who engages in tilling and cultivating his farm with the utmost effort is like unto a worshiper who devotes himself to the worship of God with the utmost humility and supplication in a temple of worship, and that the laborer who works with justice and sincerity is as though engaged in prayer. Shoaib Effendi, the guardian of the Baha'i faith, also wrote, idle people who lack the desire to work can have no place in the New World Order. As a corollary of this principle, Baha'u'llah further states that mendacity should not only be discouraged, but entirely wiped out from the face of society. Every individual, no matter how handicapped and limited he may be, is under the obligation of engaging in some work or profession. For work, especially when performed in the spirit of service, is, according to Baha'u'llah, a form of worship. It has not only a utilitarian purpose, but has a value in itself because it draws us nearer to God and enables to better grasp His purpose for us in this world. It is obvious, therefore, that the inheritance of wealth cannot make anyone immune from daily work. The idea of having a profession and being of value to society is so important that regardless of how wealthy one may be and how busy we may be doing the work of the faith, we're not absolved from having a profession. And this is an important piece because, you know, in the religions of the past, if you were a priest or you were a mullah, that was your profession. But we have directive from the guardian of the faith, Shoaib Effendi, who tells us, working for the cause does not and cannot constitute a sort of professional activity of the type current in ecclesiastical organizations, whether Christian, Muslim, or otherwise. We have no priesthood, no specialized class of people who can make the cause their only life work. Men and women are commanded to work for the cause, not as a substitute to their daily professional occupation, but in addition to them. This is from the letter on behalf of Shoaib Effendi. And to me, this is truly profound, a profound statement that working as a way of, through our profession, benefiting the world is something that we cannot really get away by. Now, I've studied this subject and I've researched it. I have not yet been able to find any passage, and if you have, please send it to me. I've seen passages on the fact that once we reach the age of 70, we're absolved from the idea of fasting or saying our obligatory prayer, but I have not seen any passages that suggest that we're absolved from working. Now, of course, it doesn't have to be full-time, but some kind of work and profession, because as you saw in one of the passages we just read together, that Shoaib Effendi reminds us that even if you're handicapped, we're expected to still work. To me, these teachings are wonderful reminders that, let me just make sure that I've got the right. They're wonderful reminders that we're all expected to work. It doesn't matter how wealthy one may be, we should all work. Note that as Baha'is, we also know that wealth is only commendable if it is earned through one's own hard work and is not inherited. And you're also told that when it comes to wealth, we should be like a fountain, that we constantly empty ourselves. So can someone remain so wealthy that they no longer need to work if they're constantly emptying themselves? For Baha'is, the answer I really think is no. And again, this is my humble understanding. I personally find accumulation of wealth beyond the needs of the individual and his or her own family contrary to the teachings, because wealth needs to be used for the betterment of the world and not for accumulation. Again, that's my understanding. We also cannot absolve ourselves of our responsibility to work because we are busy with the work of the faith. Now, how amazing is it that the Baha'i teachings provide us with this phenomenal opportunity to worship by doing our daily work? How much more satisfaction can that bring to us when we know our work is a form of communing with God? And how much more noble our profession becomes when it is defined as a spiritual than rather simply a material engagement. Now let's move on to the second item, how to elevate work to worship. Abdul Baha said, work done in the spirit of service is the highest form of worship. The Baha'i teachings make it very clear that work is elevated to the status of worship when it is rendered with a spirit of service. To me, this answers the questions that I raised at the beginning. If I'm a stockbroker and I buy low and sell high, is that worship? Well, I guess it depends. Am I managing money for a nonprofit focused on addressing the hunger in the world? Or am I simply maximizing return for the extra cash that a tobacco company has parked with me? If I'm a customer service agent for a cable company, am I truly interested in resolving my customers' issues and reducing their stress? Or do I simply care about punching in and then out so I can be done and collect my paycheck? From a Baha'i perspective, then, to accomplish its purpose, work cannot be reduced to simply a means of satisfying our material wants and needs. Instead, it has to meet our deeper spiritual needs and the needs of others as well. It must find constant expression in service to humanity. Abdul Baha said, all effort and exertion put forth by man from the fullness of his heart is worship. If it is prompted by the highest motives and the will to do service to humanity. This is worship, to serve mankind and to minister to the needs of the people. This is one of the reasons that when we were, in a sense, retooling my company, One Planet, we came up with the slogan, innovation times intention. In Silicon Valley, we're all into innovation and coming up with new technologies and so on. But it's the intention behind that innovation that can make all the difference. And we wanted to make sure that we constantly question our own intention as we were building new stuff, building new technologies and new businesses. And also, striving to excel is integral to meaningful work and loving service to humanity. This concept of service is central to the pattern of the Baha'i life, both individual and collective. Abdul Baha tells us, all humanity must obtain a livelihood by sweat of the brow and bodily exertion, at the same time seeking to lift the burdens of others, striving to be a source of comfort to souls, and facilitating the means of living. Now, of course, almost every kind of work has some benefit for somebody else. It may help support and educate our family. It may feed people. It may benefit our community. It may train children. It may create art and beautify the world. It may even save lives. But it is the motive and the intention that makes all the difference. The Baha'i teachings dramatically expand the traditional definition of worship to include art and science, all forms of craftsmanship, and every kind of work that provides selfless service to humanity is included. Abdul Baha tells us, in the Baha'i cause, arts, sciences, and all crafts are counted as worship. I mean, isn't that just absolutely amazing? All arts, sciences, and crafts are same as worship. The man who makes a piece of notepaper to the best of his ability, conscientiously concentrating all his forces on perfecting it, is giving praise to God. A physician ministering to the sick gently, tenderly, free from prejudice and believing in the solidarity of the human race, he is giving praise. I mean, there are a few keywords here though, right? That it is making that notepaper to the best of his ability. It is making an attempt to perfecting what we are making. It is attending to the sick gently, tenderly, free from prejudice. Those are key words that really check our intention and also raise the standard that we're after. Isn't this a freeing experience, knowing that our everyday work, when it is infused with proper motives and intention, when done with the idea of wanting to help others, allows us to lift up our profession to worship? And that work can also feed our spirit and not just provide us with a paycheck. The wonderful thing is that this is available to all of us. We simply need to start our day with the right intention, as Abu Baha said. And I think we had that beautiful song at the beginning, therefore strive that your actions day by day may be beautiful prayers. That is the ideal that the Baha'i faith is after. So this brings us to the third topic, and that is elevating work to purposeful impact, using our profession as an agent for making the world a better place. I humbly submit to you that it is no longer enough to work and call it worship. Life is too short. We cannot take our most productive hours every day, 8, 9, 10 hours, and exclude them from our real work, which is working toward an ever-advancing civilization. Having an occupation seems to represent the absolute minimum, but far from the standard. The Baha'i teachings offer the answers to the ills of the world, so we need to be bold, unapologetic, and courageous in applying those teachings. And this last sentence about Baha'i teachings offering the answers to the ills of the world, I actually would present this to also those who are not yet Baha'is, because I think that Baha'i faith is the answer to the ills of the world. And if anyone has better answers, should present it. As the House of Justice reminded us in one of the recent letters, that we are open to looking at better answers if there are. But until then, these are the best answers we have to the ills of the world. So whether you're Baha'is or non-Baha'is, I think we can find solace in the fact that by applying these principles, these values, we can, all of us, participate in making the world a better place. The Baha'i writings remind us that we need to apply spiritual solutions to economic problems. Well, unfortunately, we do have a lot of economic problems. Extremes of wealth and poverty. I mean, think about this. The wealthiest 8 people, just 8 individuals in the world, own as much as the bottom 50%. That's more than 3.5 billion people. The richest one person, just one individual, you can probably think who that person is. The richest person is worth more than the combined economies of the bottom 55 countries of the world. Now, then we have rampant materialism and wasteful consumerism that's affecting all aspects of our lives, including the climate. And then there's self-interest and the idea of the survival of the fittest as a primary driving force in our economic life. Just look at the companies that they view their success by the idea of their competitors going bankrupt. Their competitors' demise is their success. And that idea of survival of the fittest is clearly having a negative impact on our economic lives. On March 1, 2017, the Universal House of Justice, a supreme governing body of the global Baha'i community, wrote a letter to the Baha'is of the world focused on humanity's economic life and the associated decisions that individuals make. This letter has provided us with a much needed framework based on the teachings of the faith that help guide the economic aspects of our lives. The Universal House of Justice raises the bar dramatically, saying that it is not enough to just work, but instead we need to tackle the problems that the overall economic life of the planet is now facing. This is a long quote, but an important one, so I will share it with you. The Universal House of Justice tells us, humanity's collective life suffers when any one group thinks of its own well-being in isolation from that of its neighbors. A stubborn obstruction then stands in the way of meaningful social progress. Time and again, averse and self-interest prevail at the expense of the common good. Unconscionable quantities of wealth are being amassed, and the instability this creates is made worse by how income and opportunity are spread so unevenly, both between nations and within nations. But it need not be so. And even if current approaches to economic life satisfied humanity's stage of adolescence, they're certainly inadequate for its dawning age of maturity. There is no justification for continuing to perpetuate structures, rules, and systems that manifestly fail to serve the interests of all peoples. There's an inherent moral dimension to the generation, distribution, and utilization of wealth and resources. to view the worth of an individual chiefly in terms of how much one can accumulate and how many goods one can consume relative to others is wholly alien to Baha'i thought. But neither are the teachings in sympathy with sweeping dismissals of wealth as inherently distasteful or immoral, and asceticism is prohibited. Wealth must serve humanity. So the question becomes, how do we put all these lofty principles into practice? How can I elevate my work to worship? And how to bring about sustained impact, whether I'm an employee or a business owner? Now, here are a few thoughts, but I'm sure that together we can come up with more, and we'll probably discuss more during the Q&A portion. So if I'm an employee, it is the spirit through which I offer my work. I do the best I can, regardless of how much I get paid or how much I may not like my employer or the job. Think about the idea of walking into the Department of Motor Vehicles. And I know in California, that's one of the worst experiences one can have. If I work in that environment, I may not like it. I may not like the job. I may not like I may not even like the people I come across as my customers. But how do I serve them benefits me, benefits my spirit. So I should be cognizant of that. The fact that I should look at each person I serve as a noble human being and do what I can to address their needs. I should greet people with a happy and joyful presence. I should make people feel welcomed. And if I'm a Baha'i, I should take Baha'i holy days off. And if I'm a business owner, I should be offering profit sharing. I should consider gender equity. Clearly, I should consider racial equity at my work. I should shut down my company on Baha'i holy days and still pay the employees because I'm the Baha'i and I'm the one who should take the burden, not the employees. Even if they're hourly workers, I should pay them. I should consider the overall social impact of my company. I should consider the consequences of my decisions and anticipate the traces those decisions leave behind, doing my best to ensure that they will be in line with Baha'i ideals. Now, as I mentioned to you at the beginning, at my company, One Planet, we decided that we're going to be unapologetically Baha'i. And it's a for-profit. Now, we have to be very careful by making it very clear that the mistakes are our mistakes and not the mistakes of the faith. And we make a lot of mistakes. But at the same time, how else we're going to learn? We have to apply things and see how we can apply them in a business setting. So, for example, we close our office for each of the Baha'i holy days, and we refer to them as service days. On these days, every employee at each of our offices around the world commits to serving humanity in a shape or form. They get to decide. Here's an example, these pictures of us joining Justin Baldoni at his Carnival of Love, working with the homeless in LA. And we decided to cut hair that day. And, there's one thing we ask our employees not to do on that day, and that is to not serve a political party, because we believe that political party is by nature divisive. And we ask our employees that at least on that day, let's be unifying. Regarding gender equity, especially when it comes to pay, on a quarterly basis, we review meticulously pay scales in the company to make sure that there is no disparity. And if there is, that is in favor of women earning more than men. In the United States, we all know that racism is our most challenging issue, and I cannot adequately emphasize the importance of understanding the history of this country's institutions, because many institutions in America were built up on slavery and dehumanization of people from African descent that continues to this day. Without even realizing it, this shaped my journey. As an immigrant, entrepreneur, and operator of businesses, I have become partly successful because of the unjust system that exists. And I feel like I'm an accomplice unless I do something about it. Therefore, the issue of race is of utmost importance to me and running One Planet. We helped fund the Equal Justice Initiative's lynching memorial in Montgomery, Alabama. And we petitioned the city of our headquarters to support a Black Lives Matter mural. And for employees, we have begun a very thorough process of educating them on race and real American history, along with implementing programs and policies that reduce barriers to inclusion. Now, clearly we have far to go, but I truly believe every company needs to champion the cause of racial unity in a serious way. And again, not because we are trying to feel that we are being benevolent, but rather we should do that because that's the right thing to do. That is surely expected by the faith, from my perspective, to do. We should be standing up for justice, and how better we can do that through our everyday profession, where we spend 8, 9, 10 hours a day. In these ways and more, we can see how our work can be defined as something more than just earning a paycheck or growing a business, but rather one that is very tightly connected to service to humanity. At least that is what we should be striving for. I'd like to end with a quote from the same letter from the Universal House of Justice. It's a quote that I think about often, and it has profoundly impacted the way I think about at least our decision-making in my company. It says that every choice a Baha'i makes as employee or employer, producer or consumer, borrower or lender, benefactor or beneficiary, leaves a trace. And their moral duty to lead a coherent life demands that one's economic decisions be in accordance with lofty ideals. That the purity of one's aims be matched by the purity of one's actions to fulfill those aims. By consecrating oneself to the service of others, one finds meaning and purpose in life and contributes to the upliftment of society itself. Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Okay.
Great. Thank you so much. That was really insightful and thought-provoking. So now we're going to open it up for a Q&A. You can either leave your question in the chat bar below, or you can use the raise hand feature and I will unmute you. If you click participants at the bottom, and then on the right-hand side, there'll be a blue raise hand feature that you can click on. Okay, we have a question from Raju, so I will unmute you now.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Raju.
Okay, hi. I live in Dubai. I'm Indian. For me personally, I've been working for a company for 30 years, and I practice exactly what you said in such a way that I'm that type of guy. Even when I go on holiday, I want to do my work. You know, so I just love what I do, and well, I work for a bank in infrastructure. So whatever I'm doing, I always feel I'm improving the life of others. So I really go so much with what you're saying. On the other hand, my best friend, although she's so much, we are so close, and I talk to her all the time about everything, the Baha'i principles and all. She's not Baha'i. She's not so much of a religious person, but she does follow what I do and respect it. Whatever she does, because maybe she doesn't end up with the right managers. She's never happy with her work. Although it pays her well, the manager usually takes care of her financially in any way, but maybe she doesn't get the same type of respect or love, or it's difficult for me to state it, because when I tell her everything has to come from you, don't expect it from somebody else. She just doesn't get that one point that, you know, when you're doing service, you do what you can and then forget about the results. The results will come by itself. But it doesn't go in our heart somehow in the same way that it has gone in my heart for so long. So I've read so many things about the subject, and whatever you said and read was so true. But what is the one or few things which I can say differently than what exactly I've been telling her so many times, and what you are saying now, that can make her, you know, get in a better place? You know, it's very difficult for me to, sorry, I'll put on my video. Sorry, I didn't know I was not sharing. So it is really difficult for me to see her not happy, although she has everything. She has good health, she has good money, she has everything, you know, a lady would want, but just she's not happy with her work, and it makes a difference to your life.
Sure. I have two daughters, 14 and 15. And if you have any teenagers, any of you, you know that every now and then they come home and they say that, my teacher doesn't understand it, doesn't get it, and they're just unhappy with the teacher. And for whatever that may be the reason. And usually what I tell them is that, look, today it's your teacher that you're not happy with. In the future, it may be your boss. And, because we cannot really choose our bosses. Even if we work for a good boss, there's a high likelihood that at some point the people move around, they leave, and they're replaced. So, that's why I think that that joy of wanting to serve to our profession really comes from the individual and not from others. But at the same time, one thing that I know it's not for everyone, but I think it is an important. I think it's an important thing. And this is just my own personal perspective. That I think it's really valuable for more Baha'is to run their own businesses. I think because it's a valuable arena to employ the values of the faith, and because when you have a chance to run a business, you have employees, you work with vendors, you have customers, you have so many opportunities every day to put the values to work. It's a never-ending opportunity. Now, it doesn't mean that as an employee I don't have that. I do, but then the key thing is that I should understand that the chance that I'm not going to change the company, I'm not going to change my boss. I can only worry about my own doing and how I'm able to just put the values to work, and the fact that that represents my relationship with Baha'u'llah, my relationship and my faith and my worship. So my happiness is because of the joy I have in living a life of worship through my profession. I don't know if any of this is helpful, but that's at least how I would look at it, the advice I would give to my daughters.
Great, thank you. Our next question is from Toby, so I will unmute you now.
Hello, thank you so much for picking my call. I have, thank you, Payam, for this presentation. I have one question. Your discussion has been like from entrepreneurs' perspective. And I'm wondering, how would an employee who is a Baha'i, consider some of this when he is working with employees who are not Baha'is? And for example, how can he be in that position, like, for example, first of all, work with that sincerity and work with that company, putting in mind that he is a Baha'i or she's a Baha'i, whatever he is doing, he is very sincere or she's sincere in doing what he's supposed to do. But then the employer is, trying to be working the other way around. That's one. And then the second one is about like holidays. This is like, let's assume this is an employee who works from paycheck to paycheck. There's nothing, and he only gets money when he gets there. And trying to meditate on, should I take holiday off? And I'm going to miss this, I'm going to miss that. And so how do you strike the balance and to get to comfort zone, which it might not be really comfort zone, but to at least get to a level of saying that, yeah, I can do with this.
Yeah, you're bringing up really interesting points, Toby. It's of course taking Baha'i holidays off is a Baha'i law, but just like any other Baha'i law, it is completely up to the individual, and no one can ever question anyone. And they need to make up their mind if they can, they can actually, and that law, of course, allows people under many different conditions to continue to work. I mean, if I'm an essential, if I'm a frontline worker these days in a hospital, of course I'm going to go to work because the service that I'm offering to others cannot stop. But again, I'm going to go back to the example for my daughters, that if it's during the exams and a Baha'i holiday happens to fall during their exams, I ask them to take the day off. Now they complain, but my answer to them is that following the laws is not meant to be easy. It is meant to represent a level of sacrifice. And but a level of sacrifice, I think, that is, again, the individual has to decide. Is it a justifiable level of sacrifice for that individual? But, the only thing I'm going to leave you with is that even if you're an entrepreneur, trust me, it's not easy to choose to take that day off, the Baha'i holiday off, because you think about the fact that your competitors continue to go after the customers. You think about the fact that, it's expensive. You have employees and you have to pay them regardless. And depending on the cash position of the business, that may be a challenging thing. But anyhow, I just feel like following Baha'i laws, all laws, not just this one, is supposed to be a little bit of a sacrifice and a bit challenging. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a law. But then at the end, the individual decides. Now, about, I don't think that my intention was to present this from the perspective of an entrepreneur. I shared some of the ideas or some of the experiences that I've had as an entrepreneur. But I think that all these passages, and the talk was primarily made up of passages, are meant to be for all of us. And I'll go back to the example of one of the worst experiences, at least in California, I can have, which is by going to the Department of Motor Vehicle or calling my local cable company. And, I think by not worrying about the employer, but worrying about me, it reminds me of the song by Michael Jackson, Looking at the Man in the Mirror, that, let's not worry about everybody else. Let's worry about me, that what is a role I'm going to be able to play. That if I'm working in that department with 20 other people and they're all being rude to customers and they are not taking care of them, they're not answering the phone calls on time, they're making them wait longer than they should, I don't do any of that. I greet them with a happy, joyful face. I take care of them. My interest is not just them, but their spirit, my own spirit. If I handle things that way, don't you think that that breath of fresh air is going to impact the people around them? And again, the idea at the end of the day is I'm doing that for me, not anyone else. I'm doing it for my own spirit, not for someone else's. So I don't really care what's going on around me or who's my employer. I'm going to keep doing it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Our next question is from Yara. So I'm unmuting you.
Hi, Mr. Zamani. Thank you for a wonderful talk. It was really inspiring and amazing to hear. My question was, what was your original inspiration to starting Baha'i teachings, and how has that inspiration, whether the goal for it or how it's manifested itself, changed from when you first thought of it to now?
Thank you, Yara. So I'm going to try to make it short because it's a bit of a long story. So about 10 years ago, when our kids were really small, my wife and I and our kids, we went to a neighborhood, going door to door, inviting people to come to activities at our home, to children's classes at our home. And frankly, after a couple of hours, I had a difficult time with it. And I thought that this is probably something I'm not going to be very comfortable doing. So I'm an internet entrepreneur. If there's one thing I know is the internet and online marketing. So I decided to build a one page, just saying that, hey, if you're interested to learn more about the Baha'i Faith, let us know how we can contact you. They would include their name, phone number, email address. And I did marketing on Google, spent exactly $110. That was my budget. And I advertised just for that geography, geo-targeted advertising as it is called. And 10 people they sent a request to be connected. My wife Guya, she reached out to them. She invited them to a Ruhi one at our home. One of them showed up, but that one decided to become a Baha'i, and then she actually ended up marrying one of the individuals who was serving at Bosch Baha'i School, and so we thought, okay, this thing, this can really work. So we decided to modify the idea a little bit and build this website that would, on one hand, provide a fresh way of providing current content, but from a Baha'i perspective, that would cause people to share it in social media, but also Baha'is from all walks of life would be able to contribute content to it. And that's what we did. We built that, and we wanted to make sure in anything I do in life, business or nonprofit, there needs to be a rhythm. I believe that you need to have that rhythm. You need to make things turn them into a habit in order for them to work. So from early on, we decided that we will publish 2 articles a day. And for 10 years, we have published 2 articles a day. And so we have published over 5,500 articles so far. And it has, I guess, evolved in a way that it has a lot more of a professional management associated with it. Liz Dwyer is the editor, and she does a phenomenal job. And you know, we try to make it current. That's, I guess, the best way to put it. And as you can, if you go to the website, you'll see that we are very much focused on the issue of race in America right now, which clearly is the right thing to be focused on. And anyhow, I hope that, and there's about you know, we have about 400 or so seekers a month that go through the platform, and they are connected to the National Spiritual Assembly Seeker Response System, and about 200,000 people visit the website on a monthly basis. So I'm glad. It makes me really happy when I hear that people use it, or when I go on Google and I search for something Baha'i and I see that a link shows up. That was a goal from the beginning. So it's good to see that it is having a bit of an impact.
Thank you. Our next question is from Bita, so please go ahead.
Thank you for the talk. I have a question. I was wondering how you think like youth can use the concepts and like having like a spirit of service while starting to choose a career path for the future.
That's really a good point. And by the way, as far as you know, we're asked to have all of these, you know, the spirit of service and the way we approach things in our profession. And the youth, their profession is going to school. So from my perspective, that spirit is something that should be exuding at school. So the teachers can see that they love getting educated. They love being there. Whereas many of the students potentially have a very different perspective when it comes to that. But I mean, you bring up an interesting point to think about how we can really excel in whatever we do. Because if you think about some of the passages that we read together, it is really important for us to love what we do, because we also are expected to excel in what we do, to try to do it, you know, to go after perfection. So it is not just enough to do something, but try to do it really, really well. And then the question becomes, then should I go after what I have passion for? Or what if I have passion for something that there's no clear understanding how that can be of service to humanity, or how that can pay the bills and so on? And there's a good book, it's not a Baha'i book, that came out a few years ago called Be So Good They Cannot Ignore You. I think that's a title. And it talks about the fact that you can almost pick anything, but if you spend 10,000 hours on that thing, you become world class in that thing. And that is what I like to motivate the youth to go after, meaning that don't say at the age of 14, I'm passionate about, I don't know, pick something, but not knowing how that can help serve, how that can pay the bills, but rather think about how can I serve? If I want to serve, if I want to be of value to my own family, to myself and humanity, what is the right profession for me that I also feel like I would enjoy doing? And then become really, really, really good at that. So there are a few things. I mean, I can tell you that with my own daughters, my younger daughter, I don't think she's on. If she is, she probably hates me saying this, that I think she would actually be a good doctor. And I would love that for her, because that's a noble profession. You can earn a living doing that. You can go serve anywhere in the world and put that skill to work. And immediately your work is worship. Of course, you have to do it tenderly, gently. You want to be truly healing people and so on. My older daughter, I think that she would be a good entrepreneur. And I think she would really excel in that. So now they could completely surprise me, and this could become vice versa. They could each do the one I'm suggesting to the other. But at the same time, I think that that's what they could be good at. So that's what I'm going to advise them. I really believe that through self-employment, we can do more for living a life that gives us the flexibility to be more of service. So I personally love that.
Thanks. Our next question is from Mariam and Shay, so I'm unmuting you.
Hi, everybody. My wife and I are actually joining from South Africa, so it's more than just different parts of the US. It's wonderful to be here with you guys. Thank you so much for your talk. I really, really enjoyed it. And this principle of work as worship is really something that's always stood out to me as something very special and unique that the Baha'i Faith has to offer. And I think, as you outlined, the implications of it are really profound if we can live up to this ideal. And my question is about living up to that ideal. What I find in myself, I also love work. I really love work. And the thing that I'm never 100% sure of is, do I love it because I get a lot of ego feedback from being successful and working hard and doing this? How much of it is the ego, and how much of it is the pure intention to serve the world? And I think especially in the times that we're living in right now, work is very, very much associated with our identity and who we are. And I think we're probably out of balance right now in the world. And in the future, it will probably be a different thing. We won't define ourselves by our work. But in the world that we live in right now, I find that is a difficult thing to balance with this ideal. I was just wondering what your comments on that would be.
You mean the balancing of how we use our work for service, you mean?
Well, balancing like how much we love working and keeping it in check with, is it because we're just getting an ego boost out of it?
Yeah, I'm out here. By the way, Shay, what do you do?
I also work for a bank. I'm a data scientist. Yeah.
Cool. So, I mean, I think that is wonderful if we love our work, and I tell this often to my wife that I love what I do, and so I can be working 20 hours and I won't even know it, that I was working for 20 hours, and I absolutely enjoy it. And but I think that if I would not be happy, I would not be as joyful about my work if I could not constantly infuse it with the kinds of things that I think would elevate the work. I'll give you a quick story. A few years ago, we were at the ABS conference, and I think it was in Southern California. And Layli Miller, that many of you know, the founder of Tighter Justice Center, she was giving a keynote. And I remember I turned to my wife and I said, I'm jealous. And she said, why? I said, because Layli's everyday work is service. It is not two different things. She goes to work and it's service. And how wonderful is that? And, of course, I had always thought about this subject, but that made me even think a lot more that how can I put the teachings into my work on a daily basis? And one of the things that I kept hearing different board members at Tighter Justice Center saying was that Tighter Justice Center is unapologetically a nonprofit, a Baha'i nonprofit. And to me, that always stood out. That why is it that so many of us Baha'is, we like to be under the radar, that we like to be kind of like really, really good to be at undercover agents of the faith. I don't get that. Why? And I feel like we need to be unapologetically Baha'i in everything that we do every single day. Because you know what? I don't know about you. I'm 49. I'll be 50 soon. And time is running out. And if not now, when? If not during the 8, 9, 10 hours I spend on a daily basis working, then when? When I'm really tired in the evening? So it has to be throughout the day, every day. Otherwise, life will be done and over with very quickly. And I feel that I was not unapologetically a Baha'i throughout the day. So I don't try to find a balance. In fact, I'm looking for an imbalance of it being very much focused on the teachings. Now, the concern that we need to have is, are we burdening others? And I don't know, if somebody is burdened by the teachings of a religion that's supposed to be the right religion for this day and age, I don't know. I don't know if that's really my problem.
Thanks. Our next question is from Bayan.
Hi, thank you for your talk. So I had a question about like youth and like picking careers in the future, and I know that it's important to pick a career where you can be of service to humanity. And but then I was also like thinking about how in our current day, a lot of the careers that offer good service to humanity aren't like paid so well, like teachers or other types of professions. So I was wondering, what is the balance we should look for towards like making enough money, but then also being of good service to humanity? How can we balance those two motivators? Because I know we have to try to balance them, and I know it's hard for me sometimes when I'm looking at colleges, if I'm looking at majors, what I want to make as my career, it's these two things are sometimes battling each other. Like if I want to make more money, but also I want to be of service. So I was just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Bayan, that's a really, really good question, and it touches on the ills of the world that we live in, that a teacher gets paid maybe 1/100th of a basketball player. And yeah, I mean, that is a problem. But the good news is that also all the studies show that up to about $75,000 a year worth of income, your happiness improves as your income goes up. Above $75,000 a year worth of income, your happiness does not improve. And at some level, the happiness actually goes the wrong direction. Now, I'm not suggesting at all that you're not going after maximizing your financial capacity. I think that the faith needs people with significant capacity because at the end of the day, Shoaib Effendi also reminded us that, the fund of the faith is a lifeblood of the faith. And we need to have individuals who are able to contribute selflessly and significantly to the faith. But I think that the path for every individual is different. And if you're thinking about service, there are also many different ways to serve. Being a teacher is one way to serve, and knowing very well that the income will be adequate to keep you happy, but will not make you wealthy. But at the same time, there are other ways that you can also serve. Depends on where you want to take it. I think that, if you just look at and I think Forbes and other publications, they provide a list of some of the best paying professions out there. And you can look at those lists and find out which one of them is something that you can be excited about. So you can go after something that you can be excited about, you can serve through that, and also get paid well. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but that's probably the best I can do right now. So.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Okay, one other question from Raju. I'm unmuting you.
I was saying it's not a question, but this is what I did with my son. My son also he just started college. He's 19. He's studying psychology. And up till now, up till a year ago, let's say, or less, a little less than a year, he was like how I was in my youth, a bad boy, you know, a real bad boy. He didn't entertain so many programs, and my house, things go on all the time, but he was not involved in so much in these activities with the youth. And then he went to college. After 3 months of college, he came back saying, I don't want to go because the psychology I'm learning there doesn't gel with my principles. And he came back from college in the UK, and he said, you know, I have to think what I have to do. Then we got him into some Baha'i classes, into a lot of meditation programs, and somehow he got better. And then now he has turned 180 degrees. He's into meditation so much. He's giving Baha'i classes to others. You know, the guy who never attended any Baha'i class, I think, or hardly any classes, or if he was there, he never heard anything probably. And last 3 days ago, I gave a talk on spiritual ways to deal with stress in one of the programs. And he started it with a 5-minute meditation class, you know. So I'm just giving the background because he asked me, you know, that, when he told me that this psychology is clinical, it doesn't gel with what I kind of, what my Baha'i teachings teach me and all. I told him, see, you use your spiritual psychology with the clinical or technical psychology which you are learning, and you can become something amazing by merging the two. And maybe that's worked in his mind, you know. And now he turned around, and when he asked me, you know, well, obviously everybody, he doesn't think about it so much, about what kind of job he's going to do, which is what we are discussing in this discussion, right? I told him, I want you to think about how you can serve, and then find a way to make money doing that. You know, it's similar to what one of the things you said is, be the best at what you do, and you will make money. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it will work or not. And frankly, it doesn't matter. For a few years, if he doesn't make money, it's not going to change anybody's life. But I feel that for me, this was the right thought to tell him. You learn how to serve and find a way to make money out of it, and that is what is going to keep you happy more than any money. Sure. So, do you have anything to add to this comment, or something which tells me it makes sense what I said?
I mean, the House of Justice tells us that we should consider the trace that our economic decisions leave behind. And I feel that the biggest economic decision that a youth makes is what they're going to study, because that kind of can have a big impact on what they're going to do in their lifetime. Now, of course, many of us, like me, we study one thing, we do another. But ideally, whatever we study helps and supports what we end up doing in life. And, you know, I think the writings do tell us, at least broadly speaking, some of the areas that we should consider. You know, arts, crafts, sciences. I mean, science is a big part. I mean, just think about it. Here in the US, there has been a bias by the young, you know, the youth to not go and study the sciences these days. And I think that is opening up a significant opportunity for a lot of the Baha'i youth to go and study in those fields. And, you know, you think about, we know, and I think Persian parents actually did get it right when they said they wanted the kids to become doctors. That wasn't so wrong, because that is a great way to be self-employed, to teach the faith, and your everyday job is service. I mean, there is a reason it's a noble profession. So I think that thinking about all those things early on in life would be really good. And frankly, when I think about my own life, I wish that I had thought about it a little bit more deeply when I chose. I studied environmental toxicology, which is great. And I did that with the idea of going to medicine, but ultimately I decided not to, and I became an entrepreneur. So I do nothing in business has anything to do with what I studied, and I wish that I had. And I wish that if my kids today were to tell me that I don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up, what should I study then? I would tell them, go study English literature. I would tell them that become very good at communicating, become very good at presenting, become very good at communicating your thoughts, because that can serve anything that you end up doing in life. And don't just study something for sake of studying it. So anyhow, I think that, of course, the path is very different for each one of us, but that would be my response.
Thank you. I got a message from Munir, and the question, I think you had kind of touched on this earlier, but is there any like retirement age for working, just like how for fasting the requirement is from ages 15 to 70? So if you have any more reflections on that.
So I think I mentioned that I have not been able to find anything, and especially when Shoaib Effendi even reminds us that even if you're handicapped, you're expected to still work. Of course, a work that's appropriate based on the handicap of that individual. I'm guessing that we're supposed to always work, but what we do and how many hours we work will probably change. And I think that, if Abdul Baha is an example for us, he worked well into his 70s. And so I think that the nature of work can change, but the idea of not working, to me, seems that it is not congruent with the faith. This is just my understanding.
Great. So if there are no other questions, I just wanted to say a big thank you again to Mr. Zamani. That was really great. Thank you for...
My pleasure, Paymana. Thank you.
And I would like to introduce our speaker for next week, which will be Khotan Shahbazi Harman, and her topic will be Harnessing the Power of Prayer. And again, these talks occur every Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you'd like to be on the mailing list, I've put my email address in the chat, so please reach out to me. Thank you again, everyone, and we'll see you next Saturday. Bye.
Thank you.